Welcome to Spotlight, an opportunity to shed light on event communication trends. We are all fully immersed in a virtual world where we have to watch and listen to countless speakers and presenters. But what does it take to keep us focused virtually? To answer this question, with us this morning, Avinash Chandarana. Hello and welcome, Avinash.
Hi, Greg. Good to see you, mate.
Well, you know, it is a tradition at Spotlight that normally I would be sharing a table soccer game with the expert of the day. As you're connecting live from Hong Kong, this would be for another time.
Absolutely.
So Avinash, tell us, what's the main challenge when it comes to virtual presentations?
Well, hey, Greg, you started off by saying, we're all immersed in having to watch and listen online. And that's been happening for at least a year for most of us now. And I would actually now move that word from immersion to drowning in a sea of content in the online space. So if we move now from the physical space, remember those moments, those magical moments when we're sitting in a venue, we were immersed in the sights and sounds and smells of a location and watching and listening to speakers on stage. Well, now we've moved into the virtual world. And that remains a tremendous challenge for a number of different reasons. Because, of course, we can think about the technical challenges and internet connections. We can think about the lack of energy. We can also think about distractions. For example, that cat running across your screen or kids running through the door behind you. All of these are distractions. And ultimately, that affects our level of attention, as well as, of course, multitasking from home when we're actually trying to focus on someone presenting. If we put all those together, what happens, Greg? It means that there's a lack of engagement. So the number one challenge, Greg, in my mind, is the lack of engagement in the online space.
Would there be any particular methodology or approach?
Sure, Greg. I mean, there are many different ways that we can tackle this challenge. And it's called the D3 model. So if we look at the D3 model, the first D is all about developing your content and structuring your presentation effectively so that it translates well into the online environment. The second D is all about design. So when we think about design, we're looking at our visual support, for example, but also designing the flow and interactivity of your presentation. And then finally, we're talking about delivery. And delivery is all about our performance as presenters. So I equate actually presenting online a little bit like the TV reporters that you see on the news on a regular basis. We are now all TV reporters looking at a little camera. So the power of performance into that little lens is extremely important in order to influence the engagement of our audience. So that's the D3 model: develop, design, and deliver.
So talking about the delivery part of virtual presentations, could you share with us a few very concrete tips?
Sure. Again, so let's look at that model of D3. So when it comes to delivery, it's all about energy. Okay, so there's many things with delivery, but one of the key things is that we need to use the energy that we have in order to translate our message effectively to the audience that are sitting there watching and listening on screens all across the world, for example. How do we actually make sure they engage with us? Well, there are a number of ways. If we can take the power of our voice, but also use our body language and our gestures, just like you would in a physical setting, this will engage your audience. So the research tells us, in fact, that only 7% of the influence in communications is the words that you use and that you communicate. But 93% is on how you communicate that message. So maximize your voice as well as your gestures to create that level of energy. The second tip is all about triggering emotions. Now, we know that emotions actually are more powerful than our rational thinking. And also emotions create anchors in our mind to remember experiences. So when we craft and design the content that we have, be sure that you use powerful visuals to support your message and your words that you're communicating. And another way of triggering emotions is to use storytelling. Now, we all love a good story, and there's a reason for that, because it's authentic, it's real, and it triggers emotions. It triggers feelings in our brain. It triggers neurochemicals such as dopamine or oxytocin. And those are powerful chemicals that help us remember. And they are reward chemicals that make us far more engaged. The third and final tip is all about facilitating the experience. So when we are presenting, the spotlight might be on us as presenters. However, the most important part of your presentation is your audience. So it's all about how can we interact with them and how can we engage them through facilitating an experience. So making sure that we're using all the tools that are disposable to us, for example, polls, quizzes, chats, breakout rooms, all of that will create an engaging experience. And that means the audience becomes a part of the presentation, not separated from it. So when we look at all of those elements, the energy, the emotions, and the experience, put that together, and that's a powerful model using the D3 methodology, Greg, to create that engaging experience. Now, what's interesting is the last tip I have for you, it's all about yourself, but most importantly, stop looking at yourself, because we're all guilty of that, right? When you see your little self on the screen, what do? We naturally look at ourselves. So if you want to engage, stop looking at yourself. Putting all that together, Greg, we can make sure that we're fully engaging our audience.
Well, thanks a lot, Avinash, for all these very powerful insights, and it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
Well, if you want to know more about how to create powerful virtual presentations, or maybe just share comments with us, just send us an email. Thanks again, and see you soon on Spotlight.